So was Osman Hadi killed to derail the electoral process in Bangladesh? Was India blamed as diversionary tactics? How should one read Osman's brother Omar's statement and its implications for the Muhammad Yunus regime in Bangladesh? Joining me on India First is a fine panel from India and from Bangladesh. Shafkat Rabi is a political columnist and founder of the centrist Nation. Mohammad Kamruzaman is a journalist who joins us from Dhaka. Ambassador Veena Sikri is former Indian High Commissioner to Bangladesh. Jalil Kulkarni is former Director General of Infantry. Subir Bhaumik is a senior journalist, keeps a hawk eye on developments in Bangladesh, as does my colleague Sandeep Unnithan. Shafkat Rabi, it's a huge charge by Omar Hadi telling the Muhammad Yunus regime, it is you that killed Osman Hadi. Now you are trying to foil elections by using this as an issue, unquote. What's the reaction and what are the implications of this statement, sir?
So thanks for having me here. I think it's an explosive headline that you guys are quoting. Bangladeshi media, I was trying to go through some of the Bangladeshi media just to figure out exact veracity. I also contacted some of their team members before this afternoon when this news hit for the first time. So I think it's a raw emotion from Osman Hadi's brother. He's talking about, he's blaming the lack of apprehension of the perpetrators and then the subsequent political outcome that may ensue from this killing, which is basically a derailed election, which some quarters are suspecting. So it's a politically charged accusation. I do not think he means every letter of the accusation. It's probably some raw nerves within Hadi's brother, who's definitely upset about the lack of progress in terms of his brother's killer's apprehension.
But does it expose, Ambassador Sikri, elements in the Muhammad Yunus regime? Is it just a politically charged emotional statement, or did they actually jump the gun, blame India, deliberately deflecting, using this as deflection tactics, Ambassador Sikri?
Well, I think that if you look at what is happening in Bangladesh, this is a clear indication of the total unrest, total lack of control, total anarchy prevailing in that country because there is nobody in control. Now, this death of Osman Hadi, when he was shot at, within a few minutes, the blame was put on India. And the Indian High Commissioner was called in and told that, look, this is your fault and the killer has escaped to India, etc., etc. Of course, we refuted that very strongly and we strongly were able to counter that. We called in the Bangladesh High Commissioner and so on. Now, yesterday or day before, in the meeting of the Yunus regime's cabinet, the Home Advisor said, we don't know who the killer is. Yes. We have no evidence that the killer has gone to India. This reversal in the position of the Yunus regime on the killing of Osman Hadi shows clearly that it was a motivated statement in the beginning. The motivated statement to blame India for it and, of course, create a chaos because Osman Hadi was known to be spouting such strong anti-India rhetoric all the time and anti-Sheikh Hasina rhetoric all the time. So I think that the Osman Hadi represented the Inqilab Manch, which is a group, which is part of the Islamists group that Jamaat-e-Islami is putting together for the elections. Now, to say that this Islamist group had themselves fallen out among themselves, this really indicates a situation where, A, there is no control, there is no statement till today on what happened to Osman Hadi. There are people saying that the person who was riding with him in the auto rickshaw, that is the person who has killed him. They're talking about the forensic report and all these kind of debates are going on in Bangladesh. So, but the very fact that the police has not been able to come up with anything is a remarkable indication of the law and order situation in the country.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, is this going to be used to postpone the elections? Is this going to be used to put pressure on Muhammad Yunus to step down? There are a lot of, conspiracy theories and stories all attached. But it doesn't bode well for what is happening in Bangladesh.
Or does it mean that Muhammad Yunus is trying to cling on to power, as some of the reports seem to indicate? Because Muhammad Kamruzaman, what does this mean for the Muhammad Yunus administration? Such a strong statement coming from Hadi's brother?
It's very natural, I think, because you know that Sharif Osman Hadi was shot on broad daylight, and the killer, whether he fled to India or not, it will be found out after proper investigation. But as Sharif Osman Hadi was shot on broad daylight in the midday, and there was huge time to flee. But the question from the family is very natural. It's of course a failure of the interim government led by Professor Muhammad Yunus. So this question is very normal, and it's from the anger or emotion. But it doesn't mean that you are, as you are telling. Actually, this is of course an emotional speech before the people, and all other also are demanding to the interim
It
government
would
to find out
actually
the killer
indicate
immediately.
immaturity, Subir Bhaumik, immaturity of the Muhammad Yunus administration or regime to blame India without an iota of evidence. And now the statement of the brother would indicate that at least elements in the regime were trying to sabotage elections, use the killing to foment unrest and call off elections or postpone elections.
Well, I don't think it's an immature government. I mean, they are far too mature for my and your wisdom. This has been a feature of this entire movement beginning July last year, that people have been killed under very dubious circumstances. They have been killed by their own people and then flaunted as shaheed or as martyrs to whip up mass frenzy at that time against the government of the day, that is Sheikh Hasina's government, and now against India and, the Awami League or whoever has been blamed for this killing. I have very definite information from the very beginning that somebody who killed Hadi was extremely close to him. Extremely close to him. Now, there is another disclosure that has come, come to our notice. Mutalib Shikdar, who is this other NCP leader who was,
Shot at.
he was fired at and nearly killed. The entire blame initially was sort of political opponents and stuff like that, but now it is found that he was actually, attacked by his own people over, sharing of extortion money and stuff like that. And he was with his girlfriend when he was attacked. And of course, there were a lot of, alcohol, bottles around. So, thing is, here is a dispensation. I won't call it a government because
Yes.
this is more of a dispensation which is handling power rather than a responsible government. Here is a dispensation which actually has specialized the technique of whipping up public frenzy, even by killing their own people, and then using it to their political advantage.
But is it now unraveling? Is it now unraveling, General Kulkarni, the manner in which, information is spilling out in public domain, or those that were very close to the regime are also being targeted? Hadi killed, another leader targeted. Are elements within the regime very desperate if they can kill a student leader who played a critical role in the ouster of Sheikh Hasina government from now till February? Could the situation go from bad to worse in Bangladesh?
Thank you, Gaurav. I think internal contradictions within Bangladesh. Bangladesh itself, and especially the Jamaat-e-Islami, influenced by the ISI, a lot of ISIF involvement over there. You find Al-Qaeda, you find Lashkar-e-Taiba, all that, and the anti-India sentiments being thrown out of proportion is indicative that within Bangladesh there are contradictions, and that the Yunus government is definitely not in full control. Much of it is happening directly and, well, we can say officially under his guidance or without his knowing what's happening. But there is no denying the fact that the anti-India sentiments are being orchestrated primarily internal, of course, Jamaat-e-Islami. Within Bangladesh also, there is a sizable proportion which doesn't seem to go along with Yunus's government. Otherwise, Prathamalo being burned, the offices of Daily Star being burned is indicative that these newspapers were definitely not at all anti-Bangladesh. They were all pro-Bangladesh, all progressive, all secular. But somehow or the other, Jamaat-e-Islami have been instigated, and there is a big role. There is no denying the fact. To me, it appears ISI right now, ISIS, also Al-Qaeda, whole kind of money coming in from Middle East.
I'll come to that aspect in just a moment, because that's something I want to explore during the course of this broadcast. But Ambassador Sikri, you wanted to come in on the aspect of Hadi's brother blaming elements in the regime wanting to cling on to power through his killing.
In my view, the only answer at this point is to have free, fair and inclusive elections in Bangladesh. The problem is arising because the democratic norms are not being followed, and the Awami League is continued. Awami League, Jatiyo Party, 14-party line, so many parties are not being allowed to participate against all democratic norms. Even the congressmen and senior people from the American political system have written a letter to Muhammad Yunus, saying that please have democratic elections with participation of all parties. Muhammad Yunus has not even accepted that he has received the letter. His office is denying till right as now that we have not received any such letter from USA. And there's so many voices all over the world. The government of India has been very strongly saying that there must be free, fair and inclusive elections so that democratic norms are followed and people will believe that this is a democratic election where the parties have, whoever gets elected. It doesn't mean an opinion survey published in Pratham Alo, the leading paper, said that 70% of the people of Bangladesh want the Awami League to participate. Not that 70% are going to vote for them, no, but they want the Awami League and other parties to participate so that democratic elections can be held. We know in
Perhaps
the past...
is that the reason why Pratham Alo office was set on fire? Because they came up with such a survey that 70% people want Awami League to participate in elections. Ma'am, stay on with me on that thought. Sandeep, the West seems to be giving, and at least governments in the West, whether it's Europe or the United States of America, otherwise so vocal on democracy, otherwise so vocal on human rights, but they seem to be giving the Muhammad Yunus regime the long rope, including on the activities of radical Islamists. And this just indicates all this talk of democracy and free speech means nothing, not a whimper when minorities including Hindus are targeted, or newspaper offices torched, or media harassed, or cultural centers vandalized in Bangladesh. Sandeep. You're on mute, Sandeep. Sandeep, you're on mute. Sandeep, you're on mute. Okay, give me a moment. We'll reestablish that link. Okay, Sandeep, go on.
Yeah, well, Gaurav, there was absolutely no statements when that innocent worker was lynched in public. His body was burned. Kind of barbarity that we've not seen in Bangladesh for almost half a century. And, this only goes on to show the kind of so-called revolution that has been, ushered in Bangladesh. And, the chief executive or the chief advisor must remember, Gaurav, that in Bangladesh, they have a habit of consuming, the revolution has a habit of consuming the people who bring in the revolution. They have not spared the father of the nation, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman in 75. The same fate befell General Ziaur Rahman in 1981. And now these are the kind of forces that have been unleashed in 2025. So we are seeing this naked display of, anarchy that's playing out in Bangladesh. And if I may use the word, it's a unarchy in Bangladesh right now, Gaurav.
Shafkat Rabi, when Hadi's brother warns the Yunus regime, you could end up like Sheikh Hasina if the killers are not punished, or words to that effect. Does that spell trouble for the regime, or are the radical Islamist elements within the regime so well entrenched in this system that comments like this would be water of the duck's back?
Well, thanks for letting us speak, because we are actually from Bangladesh, talking from Dhaka. Probably know a little bit more than most of you guys from India. So if you allow me maybe 1.5 minutes, I can explain what's going on in here. So the young people who toppled the Bangladesh government, the last Bangladesh government, are obviously upset. And one of their most consequential and most significant superstars, Osman Hadi, was murdered. Before his murder, Osman Hadi actually gave many interviews, including one in our station. And before the interview, he had shown us phone numbers that are giving him threats. These are all Indian phone numbers. And most likely people from Awami Leagues, the people who are living in India right now, sending him threat letters and text messages. So there are certain, corroborations why his friends think that the killers are, at least if not Indians, but Awami Leagues living in India, something like that. So that's how this whole...
His friends may think, but for a government to make such a statement, one would expect at least an iota of investigation. I know you're in Dhaka, but we would expect even Dhaka to ask the basic questions, sir.
Right, they actually did. And some of the people who were arrested, including the guy who helps people smuggle, like who do people smuggling, illegal border crossing, his name is Philip or something like that. He actually told that some of the people who are involved in this killing fled to India. So these are facts that are reported in Bangladeshi media.
But so not stated by the government in that press conference where they said they did not have any evidence to indicate that they had gone to India or words to that effect, but be that as it may, go on, sir.
Yeah, so the reason the Bangladesh government is not blaming India as a country is responsible, right? That is the most responsible thing to do without having enough evidence not to blame a neighboring sovereign nation that you killed my guy. So I think that's responsible. It's not irresponsible thing that the government is doing. They are not blaming India directly. So all of these things are playing out in the media, like yourself. You are using words like ISIS, ISI, Al-Qaeda already, someone just using this, just throwing these words, random words into a situation. None of those things exist in here. So,
and a Hindu being lynched on the streets amidst chants of Nare Takbir happens in a very Bhadralok society, sir, isn't it?
No, of course not. There are Dalits who are killed in India as well. So crazy people do crazy things in South Asia. You should know that very well. And all of these countries have these things.
And Chaya not being targeted, Rabindra Sangeet being targeted systematically, really?
Rabindra Sangeet was not targeted. Chaya stood for the fallen regime throughout 15 years. So there are some politicization of their culture, and that was being attacked by the people who followed Hadi. So there's a lot of politics going on in here. It's not an indictment on religion, not an indictment on culture per se, not on Rabindranath Tagore for sure. There is politics in all of these elements that we're talking about. And sane analysts, people who are responsible analysts, should take context into play before throwing adjectives and crazy words and attributions. So we really need to calm down the temperature. Okay, so when we analyze these situations, this is our responsibility as responsible media.
Sir, one just hopes the manner in which a man is lynched on the streets and there are thousands who are taking videos instead of stopping that lynching, and the manner in which minorities are being systematically persecuted in Bangladesh. And if you think that a Hindu priest can be put in jail without due process of law, and you think that is culture, or that is politics, it is very disappointing. But I will let Ambassador Sikri respond to that on facts, sir. On facts, Ambassador Sikri.
Yeah, I think that what you're saying is absolutely right. The condition of the minorities in Bangladesh has seriously worsened from 5th of August onwards. Sheikh Hasina's plane had barely left Dhaka that the attacks on the minorities started. Hindus, Buddhists, Christians, Sufis, and Ahmadiyas, all minorities. And I think it's not been as bad in the last 15 months. Only I can compare it to what happened in 1971 when the genocidal attack was launched. And I think, again, on the bestial, inhuman, medieval, barbaric manner in which Deepu Chandra Das was killed, the world community is waking up and sending strong messages on the way in which he was killed. It's not possible in a civilized society to have this kind of treatment and all that, that Muhammad Yunus really hasn't said anything about it, something about new Bangladesh. But as you're showing on your screen, this is continuing. There is no stop in the attacks on the Hindus and the Buddhists and the Christian minorities. Complete inability to actually control the law and order, complete inability to control the people who are doing this. The people seem to be having the complete immunity to go ahead with the killings, the grabbing of land, the taking away of the jobs, the destruction of businesses. I think this is absolutely unacceptable that the Yunus government is complaining, is saying they have nothing. And the moment he's asked about it, whenever he's traveled abroad and he's asked about the attacks on the minorities, all he says is, oh, fake news from India. That's all he's had to say. He had not given a
I want to get Shafkat Ravi to respond to that. I want to get Shafkat Ravi to respond to that, since he's in Dhaka, since he's on ground zero, since he has better access to information and I presume unbiased information. Shafkat Ravi, as somebody from South Asia, I would expect you to respond to this.
Well, we need to take context and also the numbers.
Explain
Veena
the
Sikri just
context,
said-
sir. Explain the context of Hindus and other minorities being targeted systematically in Bangladesh from the day that Sheikh Hasina's government or regime was ousted, sir.
Yeah. So when you use the word systematic, that means responsible authorities, including the government, major political parties, are targeting Hindus. Can you show me any example from a responsible senior political party member or a leader saying anything against Hindus? There is none. There are fringe elements in this society like any other society.
The complete
Veena
inactivity.
Sikri, you need to allow me to talk because I allow you to
we
talk.
must keep
No,
this.
no, no, no,
we
no,
must
no,
keep
no,
this
Veena Sikri,
conversational.
you
You've
need to
raised
allow
a
me to
point.
talk.
Ambassador Sikri is responding. You've
Yeah,
raised
no,
a
no.
point. Let Ambassador Sikri respond to that point. You raise your next
So-
point after that. Ambassador Sikri, and can we have just the two of them on screen, please? Go on, Ambassador Sikri.
Well, I want to say that the way in which the system in Bangladesh, it's a regime, it's not a constitutional government. The way in which they think they can deny this when the whole world knows what is happening, it's been documented. Books have been published, papers have been written, human rights organizations have mentioned. The organizations within Bangladesh are writing about it. They have published their own reports. And all that the people who are supposed to be in charge, or you would imagine that a press representative would be more open-minded, all they can say that it's not true. So I think that this kind of deniability is not only impossible to believe, it shows the guilty conscience.
Nope.
It shows that they're guilty of those actions, and that is why they're denying it. Why is it that
We are not denying anything.
Why is it? May I just finish? Why is it that the Hindu teachers, primary school teachers, have been surrounded by mobs and forced to resign? Why is it that the Chittagong indigenous people, they have been raped and they accuse the army of joining in on those attacks? All this has been coming out in the media writings, in what even your own organizations have been covering.
Okay.
Your own
Mr. Ravi, you want to quickly respond to the points that Ambassador Sikri
and
has
how is
raised?
it that you just keep on saying you have nothing to say except you have not checked a single person? A few people were arrested at one point, they were released on bail. Not a single case has been filed. Not a single FIR has been filed. Journalists are in jail for 1 year without FIR. The columnist is saying there's nothing wrong in Bangladesh. I know people who are...
And if Bangladesh wants to go down that road, go down that road, sir, good for you. You have to think what's good for your future generations.
Right.
But go on, sir.
Yeah, I mean, this is embarrassing for you guys because
No, it isn't.
Not even in here, you do not know much about the society, not even the people. You are having a show on Bangladesh, but you are just talking among yourselves. How does it even work? No other media would allow this kind of behavior.
You are there, you are responding, unless you're feeling very weak that you are unable to respond on merits.
My feelings. Okay, so you are not judging my merit here. I'm giving you perspective.
Give me perspective.
So
we are here for perspective.
Yeah, so if you listen to Veena Sikri, she just mentioned a comment that after 1971, this is the worst that you have. Do you guys even read United States human rights reports on South Asia for countries
Veena
like India
Sikri
and
did not
Bangladesh?
say that. That was another guess. But be that as it may,
she said that just a moment ago.
Are you taking solace in the fact that because it's happening in maybe because it's happening in Pakistan, so it's okay. So it's okay to happen in Bangladesh. You want to go down Pakistan's way.
Instead of ganging up on a guest, try to listen to the guest. Otherwise, don't invite.
You think we are ganging up? I'm asking you questions. You feel free to answer.
You are the host and Veena Sikri is another guest.
Yes.
Two of you guys are ganging up on me without even letting me explain.
I'm sorry you're feeling that we are ganging up on you.
I'm not feeling it.
That would
People are watching it. I'm not feeling anything.
Sure.
So if you allow me 50 seconds to talk.
If that's the way you feel, it just shows that you're just feeling cornered because we're asking you questions, sir. You're a journalist, we're asking you questions.
Nobody feels cornered by some TV host on Zoom, okay? Nobody feels cornered. I'm in my safety of my own studio, so I'm not feeling cornered. But all I'm trying to tell...
Well, I'm glad you're safe in the safety of your studio because Hindus in Bangladesh clearly are not safe.
So would you let me explain?
Yes.
Okay, so all I'm saying right now, you should analyze the situation. Bangladesh is in a post-revolutionary phase right now. A dictatorship has been withdrawn from the country. It fled the country. Veena Sikris of the world blessed that dictatorship. So they have some skin in the game to save that embarrassment for India. Because this regime was propped up by officials like Veena Sikri. So
You've leveled a personal charge, and that just shows you're feeling so insecure on this
I'm not
broadcast.
feeling-
I've asked you a question about Bangladesh, and you're talking about a former Indian diplomat who's an analyst on the show.
So she's
Sir,
talking about.
I asked you a question about Hindus being targeted and minorities being targeted in Bangladesh
she's
systematically.
Inclusive election. She's talking about
Of course,
inclusive election.
which country
right
would
now,
not want to see inclusive
after
elections
denying Bangladesh inclusive
but
elections for
Ambassador
15
Sikri wants to
years.
respond to you before I bring in other guests on this broadcast. Ambassador Sikri.
Why can't there be, you are showing all the visuals on your screen of all the incidents that are happening and you're denying it just like that.
I cannot even see your
Please
screen. I'm on a blank
that the
screen
voice
here.
of all the minority communities, the Hindus, the Buddhists, the Christians, the Sufis and Ahmadiyya, they cannot be quietened like this. They cannot be quietened as one columnist from Bangladesh saying that it's not true.
Quiet.
It cannot happen
Bangladesh
like that.
government has
When we
arrested.
know the kind of situation they're living in, the kind of appeals they're sending out, what is happening to them, how they have been deprived of their jobs. University professors have been surrounded and their jobs have been gone away because the mobocracy forces them to resign. You don't know that's happening. You don't know how many people have lost their jobs. And you know how Deepu Chandra Das was handed over to the mob by the factory people. Even the police could not save him. Just handed over to the
Unless
mob.
these are uncomfortable truths that the regime wants to brush under the carpet, and maybe the media, or at least elements in the Bangladeshi media, also wants to brush this under the carpet. Uncomfortable truths about Bangladesh. Muhammad Kamruzaman, without investigations or proof, India was blamed. That would reflect rather poorly, when a frenzied mob violence systematically followed. Now, Bangladesh is a country that's heavily dependent on India, and anti-India hate is being spewed across Bangladesh.
Thank you. I hope that at least 30 seconds I will have uninterruptedly. Actually, during the 16-year-long regime of Sheikh Hasina, more than 2,500 people were the victims of extrajudicial killings. Bishwajit, a Hindu minority people here, was killed on broad daylight by Chhatra League. And there were hundreds of incidents where Chhatra League chanting slogan like Joy Bangla attacked with weapons. But the Indian media didn't raise questions at that time.
So again, you want to blame Indian media.
Problem is there. People are confused.
Really? So now you will also blame Indian media.
You are with good intention, publishing.
You want to blame Indian media.
Veena Sikri,
I find this bizarre.
Many things.
I find this absolutely bizarre. I'm asking you questions about what's happening in Bangladesh, and you're blaming Indian media. Really? Subir Bhaumik, what is happening in Bangladesh would be very worrisome. Blaming India without proof, lynching that happens. Okay. This would indicate, Sandeep, that these are radical Islamists. Radical Islamists are running riot in Bangladesh. I'm just very surprised.
Well, absolutely, Gaurav. And this was something what Sheikh Hasina had managed to do was to bottle up the Islamist forces for 15 years. And, we've had the best relations with Bangladesh for the 15 years that Sheikh Hasina was in power. And today, those Islamist forces have been uncorked and they're running, riot in the streets. And this is exactly the kind of, worst case scenario that we feared. The kind of violence, the minorities that are being targeted. And Gaurav, there is anecdotal evidence to suggest that the population of minorities as a percentage in Bangladesh has collapsed from 20%. They were 20% in 1971 at the liberation of Bangladesh. And today they're just 8%. What explains this absolute, reduction in the population of the minorities? And they're living in fear today. And what's happened over the last year or so is only heightens that it's back to the dark days of the past, Gaurav.
Okay. General Kulkarni, many suspect, like you said, though our guests from Bangladesh, they seem to indicate that, very loosely, ISI's name is being thrown up or ISIS name is being thrown up, even though, that bakery killing that had happened in Bangladesh, ISIS name was taken there. I believe there were reports that seem to indicate that ISIS flags have resurfaced in Bangladesh. I'm surprised some journalists in Bangladesh are not concerned or worried about that. But, be that as it may, their country, their logic, the way they may want. But is there any evidence to indicate that ISI is creeping in and that could spell trouble at India's borders?
Well, Gaurav, at the very outset, the distinguished guests from Bangladesh seem to feel that there is no ISI influence, there is no ISI, there is no Al-Qaeda, there is no Lashkar-e-Taiba, and that the cultured society of Bangladesh has become so radicalized is definitely, well, I would leave it to them, to their judgment, to whatever it is. If the Russians have to tell the Bangladeshi government, look, please, come on, mend your ways. If the American lawmakers have to tell the Bangladeshi government that please mend your ways, if that is not enough, well, Bangladesh is their way of dealing. They can rule Bangladesh they desire as long as they protect the minorities there and they don't make the kind of things happening in Bangladesh is all for to see. Why would the Russians tell them what needs to be done in Bangladesh? Why would the American
maybe Shafkat Rabi would want to answer that. Maybe he would want to answer that. Maybe Kamruzaman would want to answer that. Or maybe they would want to deflect. But, their country, their logic. But go ahead.
Just give me 1 second. Do you remember how many letters American congressmen and senators wrote over the 15 years of Hasina rule? Do you remember that? So now you are just all riled up about just one letter from one congressman from Texas.
Sir,
today.
We are not riled up, sir. It's your country,
right.
So your party, you enjoy it.
That is what I kept saying. You need to put things into perspective. If you do not do that, small little things look big.
Or you think the lynching of Hindus, the systematic targeting of Hindus is a small little thing?
No, it is not small little thing.
I'm getting that from a journalist from South Asia. Really?
It is not small, sir.
You just said that.
Every minority operation is serious. But you just don't pick one and then think the whole country is gone. That's what
There's only one lynching in Bangladesh. Only one instance.
It's not systematic like the way you said. It is not systematic. These are things that the fringe elements in our society exist. I'm saying that they do. And they're doing this crazy stuff. The government is arresting. 12 people got arrested after that lynching. Those people.
How many prosecuted? How many prosecuted? Why is that Hindu priest in prison? Should a journalist, an independent journalist in Bangladesh not be curious? Why is Chinmay Das still in prison? Kamruzaman, should that not be an issue for you to raise, sir? You are a proud independent journalist in Bangladesh, aren't you?
Thank you so much. You are telling, yes, about Chinmay Krishnadashi is in jail, but do you also know that the supporters of Chinmay killed a young lawyer there? Also that, so we actually
was there any evidence? Was there any evidence to prove that? Or is that,
and Muslim?
Is that radical? Is that what radical Islamists are spreading in your country?
All our countrymen, we love all. We love Hindu. We love Muslims. Who are the citizens in this country? We equally evaluate. But why are you making difference? And you always mix up political issues with communal issues. It's very unexpected. So you should have authentic information first, then you should actually analyze. But you are...
Is Chinmay Krishnadas in jail not authentic? Is the lynching of Deepu Das not authentic?
Are these lack of information?
No. Is that a cover-up? I mean, seriously, I want to know, is there a very effective cover-up that's going on in Bangladesh and very systematic? Because perhaps you would expect when something wrong happens in India, everything is analyzed threadbare. Sir, imagine your newspaper offices are being set on fire, and tell me why your newspaper offices are being set on fire. Tell me, Kamruzaman, why do you see Pratham Alo and Daily Star?
Do you know? After this incident, we condemned it. And before that, there were such incidents in previous time during our League regime. But why were you concerned at that time? And senior editors were harassed. Where were your concerns at that time?
Okay.
So, editor was attacked in front of the courtroom.
This is so typical, sir. This is so typical. Pehle bhi hota tha. If something is wrong that happened earlier, should it continue to happen? And will journalists actually become apologists for a regime? Is that what we are seeing then? Is that what we are seeing?
People are confused about your intention. That's why.
We are wondering. Journalists, media offices are being set on fire, and journalists are saying, "Oh, that happened even earlier." Sandeep, that just sounds a little bizarre. That sounds bizarre, Sandeep.
Gaurav, the attack on the Daily Star is absolutely horrifying, and you've seen, the editor said there was the editor that is of the Daily Star has said that there was Mahfouz Alam, a very respected journalist in Bangladesh. He says there was a conspiracy to burn the building down with all the journalists in it. I mean, that's as horrifying as that it gets. At one of the biggest newspapers in Bangladesh, there's a mob that comes in and tries to burn the building down with all the journalists inside. And that's how scary things are in Bangladesh right now. And this
And
kind
yet
of
we have two senior journalists from Bangladesh who said it happened even earlier. Why is India concerned only now? Sir, it's your country. It's your country. It's your destiny. It's for you to deal with it, sir. We're only watching, and perhaps from a distance. Perhaps after keeping, certain elements at an arm's length, because for Indians, our only concern is to ensure Indians are safe if there is rise of radical Islamist terror in the region, because we have bled, sir. We have bled. We saw what happened in Pakistan. We've bled for decades. India loves Bangladesh. We would not want to see Bangladesh go down Pakistan's way. And, it's only a word of caution by someone who's actually dealt with radical Islamist terror and reported it for decades. Sir, being forewarned is being forearmed, but your country, your decisions. Many thanks for joining me.